Good evening, good morning, however and wherever you're listening to this, and welcome to another edition of the Cajun Knight Live. I am your host, the Cajun Knight, Jacob Mook. We're going to be talking about some things with the news, right? The geopolitical side of things. We're going to primarily be within the borders of the United States on this episode, with the caveat every so often. So, you know, we're going to start off talking about this whole plane swap situation that Trump did. We talked about it on the Cult Live, but this is still kind of fresh news as of time of recording, and people are still trying to figure out how and why the switch happened. Was it necessary? Was it a over precaution? You know, what the situation was. So I figured we could start there, and then we're going to work our way through all of the other things going on within the world as we are sitting here. So for all of those that are listening that would like to be a part of this conversation, patreon.com/Cajun Knight. It is in the show notes below. There's only one tier for entry. Come join us every Wednesday night and be a part of this conversation. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen at this time, and we are going to get started with this in... Oh, yep, sorry. We are going to get started talking about the details of the Trump Air ForceOne switcheroo that took place. Let's learn together, members of the retinue.
Reporting on that secret plan to sneak President Trump off. We have new reporting on that secret plan to sneak President Trump off Air ForceOne and into that catering truck, then onto another plane. Tonight, we've learned there was intelligence that an Iranian terror cell had snuck into Turkey, where the president was, with a shoulder-fired missile. Here's John Carl.
Tonight, we are learning dramatic new details about that elaborate ruse to secretly whisk President Trump out of Turkey to protect him from a potential assassination attempt from Iran. The president says the Secret Service and the military made the call.
They wanted me to go on a different flight, a different plane, equal safety, but they wanted me to do it, so I do it. I do what they say.
That decision to sneak Trump off an older version of Air ForceOne into this catering truck and then onto a separate jet was made just a few hours before his scheduled departure from Turkey. The decision was driven by intelligence that an Iranian terror cell had snuck into Turkey with a shoulder-fired missile, and that they had information about Trump's whereabouts.
Were you worried about a shoulder-fired missile?
I don't worry about anything, to be honest. Whatever it is, you know my attitude, whatever.
Only a handful of people on the old Air ForceOne knew what was happening, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Communications Director Stephen Chung. Those officials remained sequestered in the front cabin of the plane, the executive suite, separated from the rest of the staff and reporters, most of whom had no idea about the threat or that Trump was no longer flying with them. The third plane, the one carrying Trump, was escorted by F-35 fighter jets, standard protocol for Air ForceOne. The old Air ForceOne, without Trump, was also escorted by F-35s, something highly unusual for a plane not carrying the president. Trump was asked about the threat to those who remained on the old Air ForceOne.
I think actually the plane that I flew on was at greater risk. I think it was at greater risk because that would be the plane I think that they would be more likely to go for.
And what did Trump think about having to sneak off Air ForceOne in a catering truck, leaving behind his staff and the traveling press? He loved it, one of his closest aides told me.
Let's get right to John Carl. That's the report on the plane tonight. And John, in the meantime, you've got news also involving Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt tonight.
Yeah, big departure. The president announced that Caroline Leavitt will be stepping down as press secretary at the end of the month to spend more time with her family. Of course, she has two very young children, a son who is 2 years old, a daughter who is just 3 months. The president says that she will remain a top outside advisor. And David, no word on who the new press secretary will be.
Yeah.
You know, might as well just segue from this one to the conversation about Caroline Leavitt. But first, the plane swap. I told y'all whenever I first heard about this, I was like, I guarantee this was his way of flexing on the reporters and reminding them of like, yo, I can come to some country, say some crazy things on a microphone, and make all of your jobs a lot more dangerous. Y'all better start acting correct. It could have been. And then even just now, them saying, what did Trump think about this? He loved it. Like, yeah, I'll bet he did. This was prime Trumpism, honestly. I don't know. Tony, I see you unmuted, man. What's your thoughts on this?
Oh yeah, I've been unmuted. I've heard a couple of conspiracy theories about this, since this is kind of like the cult of conspiracy. One of them is that actually Israel wants to kill Trump because they can blame it on Iran and escalate the war. I'm not sure I believe that. The other one that's sort of believable is maybe this plot wasn't real, but Israel told him it was because he wants to make Trump feel threatened by Iran to justify further attacks. Um, the other controversial thing I'm seeing people talk about is that Trump only himself got off that plane. He left the rest of his staff and obviously the pilot and co-pilot on there,
Yeah.
and everyone's saying, "What are they? Chopped liver? Come
Yep.
on!" I mean, why not get them off the plane too?
They're
If you're really so
expendable.
sure it's gonna, or if you're really that worried that it's gonna get shot down, why have anybody on the plane? Why have it take off? Or if you're gonna take it off, get some android to pilot it or something. They probably don't have those yet, but still.
I know, dude. I hear you. You left Marco Rubio on there. That dude holds a real possibility to like make a run for president one day, and you just like dipped out on him too. Like, bro, you gotta protect the future investment as well, But nah, dude. But this also doesn't shock me. I mean, and this isn't like because Trump is so selfish. No, he's the president. There's protocols for things like this, and I understand that. But even still, he's a businessman from New York. He's gonna look out for number one when push comes to shove. I don't know, that this whole situation to me was, first of all, funny. I don't know, and I would love to hear your 2 cents on this. Iran and Turkey share a border, correct?
I don't know, but I think yes, they do. Turkey extends pretty darn far east.
I want to say,
The Caspian Sea. Let me look it up.
yeah,
right
the
now.
west of Iran and the east of Turkey. I want to say they share a border, which is why they have a mutual Kurd problem. I could be wrong. Or maybe I'm thinking of Syria and Iraq right there. I might be. I don't know.
Yeah, they do have a border. I'm looking at it right now. As long as Google Maps is loading up, it's pretty significant. North
Okay.
south. It's got Dugubeziyat and Kotur and Gelener and Sachan, and there's lots of places there. I'm sure there's lots of Kurds living there. Maybe some Armenians.
Maybe. But the point is, I'm not familiar with how strict and how thorough border security is within the nation of Turkey. I'm going to be honest with you. So to say that Iranians terrorist cell, that exists. Sure. We also have American terrorist cells. We call them like the KKK and shit. Like, okay, fine. That's believable. Made it across the Iranian border with a shoulder-fired rocket, and they keep using that because they don't know if it's specifically a RPG or a Stinger or what. They don't know, so they're just using generalities here for protection. But I don't know how strict the border is. Would the Turkish Border Patrol see that and be like, oh, yeah, you're good, brother, go for it? Or, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, because I don't think Turkey and Iran are necessarily on great terms. I don't think they're bitter rivals either. They're kind of, in the mix.
Well, this border is hundreds of miles long, but then they'd have to drive another few hundred miles. It's a pretty big country. How big is this country? Yeah, like wider than Texas, it looks like. Probably good, like 700-800 miles wide. I guess it's possible, but nobody's even been arrested, or well, at least not publicly that we know about. So I'm not sure this whole thing is even real.
It very well could be a false flag, right? It very well could be they got some credible information from somebody, probably Mossad, probably not necessarily, but realistically, yeah. And it was at least a credible enough, intel drop for them to take it serious enough to do the old switcheroo like that. But I don't know. I don't know what the actual threat level was on this. I don't know, but
right.
Figured it was worth talking about. Although they also brought up the departure of Caroline Leavitt, so we're actually going to talk about her now. I was going to bring that up later on, but hey, why not? The news anchor did it for us, so let's just ride that wave. So Caroline Leavitt will step down as White House press secretary. The U.S. president announced departure on social media, saying Leavitt was leaving to spend more time with family. She's 28 years old, by the way, and the youngest person to ever have, held the position. But with that being said, She will step down as the White House press secretary at the end of August. He revealed her departure on social media. The 28-year-old Leavitt gave birth to a daughter, Viviana, in May and returned from maternity leave last month. The departure of Trump's most prominent spokesperson comes with his approval rating at a historic low as voters express discontent over rising prices and a war in Iran that has no end in sight. I'm going to reserve comment to the end. Trump says Leavitt, who became the youngest person to serve as White House press secretary on his return to office in January 2025, quote, will now be one of my top outside advisors, end quote. He put that out on Truth Social. Continuing on here, Leavitt wrote on X, the truth is, since returning to the White House after the birth of my daughter, I have felt in my heart that I cannot be the best mom to my two young children deserve without devoting the constant time, energy, and attention required of the White House press secretary. And that is why I have ultimately made the bittersweet decision to depart the White House and embark on a new chapter in my life. She served Trump as a press aide during his first term in the White House. She ran for Congress in 2022 as a Republican nominee for New Hampshire's 1st congressional district, but lost the race. I could imagine why, to be honest with you. Vermont's not exactly a very red place. She joined Trump's 2024 campaign and was transition spokeswoman, before Trump selected her to be White House press secretary. At 27, she was younger than Ronald Ziegler, who was 29 when he was Richard Nixon's spokesperson. A devout Christian, Leavitt wearing a cross necklace, and her team would hold a short group prayer before she walked onto the briefing room to face reporters. All right, so I got to be honest with you. I don't have any issue with Caroline Leavitt. I don't think she was the best White House press secretary I've ever seen. She certainly was not the worst by far. You know what I mean? She did adequate at the job, but I don't think that Trump's disapproval ratings have anything to do with her. I'm going to be honest with you. In the beginning of this new term, we were seeing a lot of clips from her. I was even hearing her voice in my regular doom scrolling was a pretty, I wouldn't say daily, but multiple times a week, there'd be some clip of her speaking on behalf of some shit. I don't actually know the last time I heard anything from her. Trump's actions are speaking way louder than his press secretary's words right now. So, good for her for getting out of the game early and spending time with the kids. I hope that she hedged her bets and won't have to work anymore. That'd be dope if she's able to live off the laurels of this one for the rest of, that'd be cool. Not saying it's going to happen, but it would be a nice thing for her. And, she seems like she's a nice lady. I don't think she was necessarily any worse than Sarah Huckabee. I don't know. I think that's a pretty fair comparison, to be honest with you. I mean, same level of, same tone and demeanor, I guess would be a better way of saying it. But anyway, all right, there we have it. Trump had to make the plane switcheroo go down. Caroline Leavitt is leaving the White House, which is also kind of interesting for her. She had kids. All right, cool. Tulsi Gabbard also recently just left the White House. Kent, he also just recently left this administration. Bongino has also left the administration. There's a lot of very strategic key players that are very close in the president's inner network that are all really looking for any excuse to get the hell out of Dodge and break ties amicably with this administration. There hasn't been any all-out cussing and screaming and all that. I guess the closest would be Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she wasn't necessarily in the mix. She was tangentially, but you see what I'm saying? There was some spite when she made her way out. Everybody else is looking for any way they can to lead this administration with a smooth, amicable transition because they don't want to make Trump an enemy, but they also cannot continue working for the guy. That being said, keep this on the back burner when we talk about what's going on in Minnesota right now, because it's also going on in other states with how many of these Republican candidates are being forced to primary and losing to relative nobodies because so many Republicans are tired of the fucking good old boy system that has gotten us in this case or in this position, regardless of whether the person had an R or a D by their name. But we're going to get to that here in a bit. I'm jumping the gun a bit. I did want to go here. So Tony has sent this post from X. This is from Jose Nino from the Unfiltered Politics. So explain what this is now. Venezuela and Israel connection again?
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Venezuela just reestablished diplomatic ties with Israel for the first time since 2009, and I thought people should know about this because we've heard a lot about Venezuela. It's definitely there's disputes between U.S. and Venezuela over things like oil and, of course, communism. But I don't think the Israel issue has gotten quite enough attention. Uh, and it's the kind of thing that some people, especially Jewish people, tend to care a lot about, and they have a lot of influence in our government. And I know that's controversial, but this is
Here's
a
what it
short
is.
thing I just want to read for everybody. A short thread
Okay.
by Jose Alberto Nino. And he writes, almost a year ago, I exposed the hidden Zionist hand behind U.S. aggression in Venezuela. Many dissident experts, quote unquote, laughed and dismissed it. Today, with Venezuela establishing diplomatic relations with Israel, my analysis stands completely vindicated. The mainstream media framed U.S. tension with Caracas as a basic battle over democracy or oil. But beneath the surface lay a much deeper layer, Venezuela's firm stance as Latin America's most aggressively anti-Zionist state. Recall what happened on January 3rd with the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro. This was never just about energy or election disputes. It was explicitly designed to pave the way for a puppet government friendly to both Washington and Tel Aviv. The breakdown started decades ago. Under Hugo Chavez, Venezuela broke diplomatic ties with Israel in January of 2009 after Operation Cast Lead in Gaza, making Caracas one of the first governments in the Americas to formally recognize the Palestinian Authority. I'm going to take a brief tangent to talk a little bit more about that because Fidel Castro was a big time pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel guy, and he was very close friends with Hugo Chavez. And to elaborate on this a little bit, Venezuela's foreign ministry stated that it had definitively decided to break diplomatic ties with the state of Israel given the inhumane persecution of the Palestinian people carried out by the authorities of Israel. This came after Chavez had already expelled Israel's ambassador named Shlomo Cohen and some embassy staff around January 6, 2009. Chavez publicly described the Israeli operation as state terrorism, and it goes further. But to get back to Jose Nino, uh, while Chavez built an anti-Zionist foreign policy, the Venezuelan opposition took the exact opposite path. In July 2020, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado signed a formal cooperation agreement with Benjamin Netanyahu's ruling Likud party. And I think we actually talked about this last summer on this show.
Yeah.
The Likud Machado agreement explicitly pledged collaboration on security, geopolitics, and, quote, Western values, end quote. Machado made it clear that once Maduro was ousted, full diplomatic ties with Israel would be immediately restored. When Juan Guaido declared himself president in 2019, Israel was among the first to recognize him. The Trump administration specifically asked Netanyahu to back the regime change effort, and Guaido publicly thanked Israel for its support. Caracas further enraged DC neocons by forging a tight, quote, axis of unity, end quote, with Iran. Alarm bells. Beginning under Chavez and continuing under Maduro, Venezuela provided Iran with a strategic foothold right in America's backyard. This strategic alliance extended to Hezbollah. U.S. foreign policy hawks routinely accused Venezuela of hosting financial and logistical networks for Hezbollah operatives, directly tying Venezuelan regime change to Israeli national security interests. Following the disputed 2024 elections, Maduro directly accused, quote, international Zionism, end quote, of funding opposition protests and attempting a coup. D.C. officials immediately moved to censor and condemn the statement. Why does Washington care so much? Because U.S. foreign policy in the region has long been steered by neocons whose primary loyalty is ensuring the global hegemony of the Zionist establishment. You can tell where this guy's coming from. And
Right.
yeah, I'm a little aligned with him. I'm going to omit the rest just for the sake of brevity, but he's written a lot about Elliot Abrams and Otto Reich, who are two big neocons who focused on regime change in Latin America for decades now. And I just want to conclude that you can't ignore the Israel angle, even if it's way over here in the Western Hemisphere. They care a lot, and that is definitely a big factor in these regime change efforts. And thank you. I yield back to you, Jacob.
Sustained. No, I'm joking. So let's talk about this a little bit. Venezuela, well, you can look at how many countries have had regime change coup style situations spurred on by our 3-letter agencies from like 1954 to now. There's little YouTube clips about it. It's a lot. It's a lot. Venezuela was absolutely a part of that. El Salvador was absolutely, Dominican Republic, Nicaragua. I mean, all over. Let's not even talk about Pinochet. There's a lot. But for Venezuela to being the socialist angle, like, it's not the Cold War anymore. I don't actually believe that that's the reason why. I always thought it was because of the oil. And I mean, you could see that because of us seizing those oil tankers from them. I did not know that Venezuela had made some sort of a tie to Iran. That's those, like you said, relatively large red flags on the play on that one. I'm trying to think of what year that was when Venezuela and Iran made that axis of unity. Let's see if I can find it here. I
don't know, but there's a lot more Arabs in South America than I originally believed. There's a lot of Palestinians in Chile in particular. I read there was 450,000. Now I'm reading 500,000. And one source says there's 2 million Arabs in Venezuela. I gotta say, I don't believe that. This is Wikipedia. But that also almost definitely has something to do with it. South America is largely a continent of immigrants, just like North America.
Yeah, but that's still interesting. Like, for there to be so much of a diaspora, or a diaspora, however the fuck people want to pronounce it, of an Arab population in South America. I didn't know that. And like, to say there's a lot of Spanish speakers in Latin America, this makes sense, you know what I mean? But why would there be such a Muslim influence in that section of the world?
Yeah, it's a mystery to me too, but there is a Wikipedia article called Arab Venezuelans, and it says there's 2 million of them. Again, I'm not sure I believe it, but there's a few paragraphs in there. And I don't know when they would have come over. There used to be a bunch of German, I just learned about a bunch of German Lutheran Templar community in Palestine that was evicted in 1945, and they moved to Australia.
Wait, it was like a Teutonic order?
They were Lutheran. I don't know if that counts. I don't actually know how that ties together, but they had lived in Palestine since the 1800s, since like before this was any issue. But they got kicked out of early Israel in 1945, just before the 47 war, and they moved to Australia.
Interesting.
550,000 Druze in Venezuela. This is like a Muslim Unitarian sect that started in Egypt around the year 1000.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I believe this. This is just I don't know. People exaggerate numbers a lot.
I get that, but I don't know why any of these countries would exaggerate their Arab population like that. First of all, to say there's that many Druze in Venezuela, that's
the source is in Spanish. And I don't know. I would have to get back to you as to whether I believe it or not. But that's what Wikipedia says. So have fun with Wikipedia, everybody.
If that's accurate, that leads me down so many different rabbit holes. Was there some sort of mass Muslim migration to South America that I just missed? From, the big migration of 65. Like, is that a thing that I'm just lost on here? Because I had no idea there were so many, specifically the Druze. That's such a minority group to have such a large population there. I don't know. It's interesting things. But if that is true, get back to the Venezuela, Iran, Israel conversation. If that is true, and the only reason why we started blockading Venezuela and, taking out Maduro and all that, I truly thought it was because of China. Because the Chinese diplomats were there, as a matter of fact, the night that he was taken, Venezuela had made so many deals to sell oil to China, all these things. I had never considered a Venezuela, Iran, Israel angle. So this is new intel for me. Interesting to say the least. I don't know if I fully buy into it, but it's definitely worth like looking deeper into this for sure.
Yeah, it's a factor, just like China's a factor and oil's a factor, and we can argue about what percentage of the pie chart you put on each one of these different things.
Fair. Absolutely. No, Tony, appreciate you bringing that up, dude. That was interesting as fuck. Okay, now let's talk about the elections that are going on right now, the midterm elections in the United States. For anybody who has not been keeping up with it, all right, for those that may not be fully aware of how the political system works in the United States, and this is not going to be a Schoolhouse Rock breakdown, but here's how this works. Let's say elections are coming up. You got what's called the incumbent candidate, right? This is the person who currently holds a position that is going to be running for re-election. Okay, cool. Then you got the other party who is putting up their candidate. Okay, here's the deal, and it depends state to state, but typically, if let's say you have 5 people that are running for the Republican Party, okay, and you have an incumbent that is Republican, so out of those 5, one of these people already has the name recognition and is currently in that seat. For you to take them to what's called taking them to primary, meaning that now they are fighting for their Republican nomination among the 5, depending on the state, some of them you have to have a percentage of nobody hit 30% of the entire Republican votes or something. So now the top 2 people would run to what's called a primary, which is like a runoff. And now instead of 5 candidates that all of the Republican voters are going towards, now you only have 2. Okay. To take an incumbent to primary from a relative nobody is a daunting task, to say the least. It does happen. It is not typically successful. I think the incumbent has, I want to say it's like a 75 or 80% chance of re-election strictly because they are the incumbent. And that's regardless of either political party. So what's happening in the United States right now is a shift. Within, specifically, this is going to be talking about the Republican Party. The Democratic Party has their own version of this going on, but to a much different scope. Essentially, the Republicans in this country are so tired of their candidates, of their elected officials, saying what they're going to do in D.C. and then not doing it, and not standing for and representing their constituents, the ones that voted them into office. So now you have relative nobodies who are being outspent 10-1 and somehow are still winning and taking these people to primary, letting them know their job is not secure. Now, another way to secure that position of why the incumbent is going to stay in the position and all these things is endorsements. This is super big. If Trump endorses the Republican candidate on the ballot, people are going to take that person a little more seriously, and they have a much higher probability of being elected. But now, incumbents are being taken to primary, and some are losing even with a Trump endorsement, and even with them outspending the up-and-comer by massive margins. The American citizens are tired of it, and their voices are being heard, and they are actually beating their ass in the polls. So let's learn about this together. This is what's going on in Minnesota, but there are so many states around the United States that this is happening in, and this is a great litmus test for our future, I think. Let's learn together.
Last night in Minnesota, as both the Republican-endorsed candidates for U.S. Senate and governor lost their races, and Michelle Tafoya and Lisa Demuth won as non-endorsed candidates. Well, tonight we are getting reaction on what this means for Republicans going forward. Brendan Anthony joins us now live. And Brendan, you talked to political experts and party leaders about these results and what makes them so significant.
Yeah, Axel, experts say it all has to do with the number of people that came out and voted this year as Minnesota set a new record in primary election turnout. In what could have came as a surprise to some, Tafoya and Demuth's wins last night boiled down to multiple factors, including sticking with what they set out to do.
They ran very disciplined campaigns. They had a plan. They stuck to the plan. They also contrasted themselves with their opponents.
But that isn't the only reason. Olson said that due to the fact this was the largest voter turnout in a primary in quite a long time in the state, that also played a big factor.
On the Republican side, what you saw was a base of Republicans who want to be more competitive in November. I've heard this since December, January, and they wanted to pick candidates that would show up and compete more than they have in 20 years.
And he does believe it will have an impact on how GOP candidates try and run for seats in the future.
Since there's now a model, every candidate going forward will look at that model and say, am I better off going with the new model that worked once in 20 plus years, or should I, invest in the endorsement? One of the things that's been previous before is the person who raises the most money and gets the endorsement kind of clears the fields.
I spent part of the day talking to voters. One of them tells me last night's results doesn't surprise her, as viewpoints of Minnesotans on who they look for in a candidate only keeps on changing.
I think what showed last night, the money and the endorsements aren't as valuable as they used to be, because we don't know, we have to think for ourselves.
The Homestead County GOP saying despite the results, they are happy with how the local races turned out. And now the attention shifts to making sure Damath and Tafoya get past the finish line.
We're excited to work with their teams and get them across the finish line with the rest of the Republican ticket come November.
And the chair of the GOP does say he thinks endorsements will be beneficial in the future, but candidates may change their approach moving forward. Live in Rochester, Brandon.
Okay, so they're talking about changing their approach, and they're still not worried about it. This is pretty huge. Now, Minnesota is not, without its own situation. How many of these, Somali frauds have we heard about going on? Okay, I got it. And so the Republicans are actually showing up in force to take back. Okay, wonderful, good things. This is going on in Texas. This is going on in New York. This is going on all over the place right now. Hell, I think Kentucky's got something similar going on. Endorsements matter, but not as much as they used to. And outspending and having these wealthy benefactors donate to the war chest, that absolutely matters. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm also seeing is that this up and coming generation of I don't want to use the term politicians just yet, because they haven't been infected by DC just yet. Not all of them, but this new wave, if you will, this new generation of people that are stepping into the political arena. They're able to use the internet for their advantage. I'm just going to be real with you. If you have a candidate that has something go viral every week, that's going to be worth more than whatever money you think you're throwing into whatever war chest, right? Even if it's some local election, but somehow it's going nationally viral, that shit it flows in from so many different angles and so many different directions. People talk. And unfortunately, the current administration, regardless of whatever, Congress or the Senate or whatever, a lot of them are, I don't want to use the term tech, non-savvy, but they don't understand the power of the internet and the power of the social medias and things to really promote themselves, not just their message and whatever. So we are seeing a lot of these incumbents really starting to get nervous about if they'll maintain their jobs, which makes me extremely happy. Another one of these, as a matter of fact, is this guy named Lindell. He alleges that this was voting irregularities, and he is refusing to concede. Yeah, it's voter fraud. That's why he lost. It has nothing to do with anything he's done in the past. He's also the founder of MyPillow. Perhaps you've heard of the company, friend of the show. Mike Lindell is refusing to concede in Minnesota's Republican gubernatorial, Jesus Christ, primary, alleging irregularities in the vote totals. The businessman, who is backed by Trump, lost to Minnesota House Speaker Lisa DeMuth, I forgot how they pronounced it, by roughly 11 percentage points, according to Decision Desk HQ. So I don't even know if that's about going to primary. If she won by a large enough margin, she might have just clinched the seat. When asked by a reporter on his live network, Lindell TV, of course he has his own network, about whether he would concede the race if the Associated Press called it for his opponent, the GOP candidate responded, "Why would I listen to the AP? There's 265,000 votes left to count. I'm down by 18,000 now," he continued. "I'm not going to give up this race until the votes are counted. That's nonsense." He stepped down as the MyPillow CEO to focus on his campaign. He has a history of casting doubt on election results and has been a leading supporter of Trump's unsubstantiated claims that the 2020 presidential election was stolen. Well, I mean, I think we can all pretty much agree that that was crazy voting. that took place then. How many ballots were cast by dead people and everything else. Like, I'm sorry. It's crazy. It's crazy work. Trump delivered a last-minute boost to the businessman's campaign in a Tuesday message urging Minnesota Republican voters to support Lindell at the polls. He wrote it on Truth Social. Mike Lindell deserves a big win in Minnesota today. Nobody's worked harder and given up so much in fighting for free and fair elections. So go out now and vote for Mike Lindell for governor. That's what the president put on his Truth Social. He will not let you down. Democratic Representative Ted Lieu, California, mocked Lindell's denial of his loss to Demuth in a social media post. Direct quote, "Many people say Venezuela rigged the election against Mike Lindell because they don't like his pillows. Never seen anything like it." That's actually pretty funny. Demuth will now face Democratic nominee Senator Amy Klobuchar, I don't know, this fall in the race to replace Minnesota's retiring Democratic Governor Tim Walz. Good. Tim Walz needs to get the hell out of there anyway. He did a horrible job while he was in. He's probably going to be facing some sort of indictment over all the fraud and the scandals and shit. The state Republican lawmaker called her win a major milestone, but noted that her campaign was not done yet. In a statement shared on social media just after midnight on Wednesday, tonight Minnesotans made it clear they are ready for real change at the top. It's time to end fraud, restore common sense to our state government, and return Minnesota to a place that works for families, seniors, businesses, and our next generation. She said, "Let's go win in November." So again, this is kind of furthering the Minnesota conversation, but this is one of the cases of one of these dudes that he's not willing to let it go. This is clearly voter fraud. There's no way that he lost. He was endorsed by Trump. That's just not the way it's working for people anymore these days. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting high on hopium over here, but I want to believe that we as Americans can pull ourselves out of the muck and the mire that has become our political system without the use of some sort of violence and civil war and all these things. I truly do believe this. I know that the votes are rigged. I know that it doesn't really count and all these things. I get it. But I don't know, call me a patriot, but I want to believe that it still works. You know what I mean? It's like the TSA. I want to believe that they keep us safe on planes. I know they don't. Okay. It's very simple, but I gotta try to keep on to that hopium a little bit. So I don't know. I'm hoping that within the next 10, 15, 20 years, perhaps we can course correct. Maybe not the entire country. How about just the Republican Party can course correct and get back to the party of common sense and capitalism? We'll see how it goes. It's very possible that it just keeps tearing itself apart from the inside out, and the Democrats keep looking like the more psychotic, super, extremist left and all these things. I don't know. It's very possible it keeps going in a divisive way, but if it keeps going the way that it's going, most people are finding themselves closer to the center. And I'm not saying that the independent party is going to make some sort of huge surgence, but possibly a third party would start and get some real traction behind it, with numbers of people that are disillusioned with the two-party system. Again, I know it's not a realistic dream here, but it's a hope. I'm trying to get high on hopium with y'all this Wednesday night. Anyway, moving on. So let's talk about the fires that are going on, not just in the Pacific Northwest, but all over. Right here, we're going to learn about the Big Sur wildfire after a lightning retreat. Then we're going to look at the map of the entire country. Let's learn together.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Larry Beal.
And I'm Karina Nova. We begin today with the latest on the timber fire burning in Monterey County near Big Sur. It has burned more than 3,700 acres and is just 5% contained.
We have team coverage for you this afternoon. Meteorologist Sandy Patel has a look at the conditions fanning the flames, but we'll begin with ABC 7 Eyewitness News reporter Dustin Dorsey with the very latest. Dustin?
Larry and Karina, just in the last 90 minutes, many of the 1,000 firefighters assigned to the timber fire had to retreat for their own safety as storms brought lightning to the area. It's another wrinkle in this fire that has been keeping everyone on their toes since it started on Sunday.
We've been evacuated from our hotel because of a wildfire.
So in that moment, what's going through your mind?
We'd never been in anything like that before. At around 10 p.m. when we got a knock at the door to say yeah, the evacuation orders become compulsory. You need to go. You've got 5 minutes to get out.
It's the first time Christian Hugill and his fiancée have been to California.
We could be evacuated.
And during their stop at Ventana Resort in Big Sur, they got the full California experience as the timber fire forced them to quickly change their plans.
Where it was most sort of dramatic was when we were by the pool and the helicopters and planes sort of went from flying over every 15 minutes or so to, at one stage, every 2 or 3 minutes.
These are just some of the 1,000 plus firefighters on hand in this blaze battle. Throughout Wednesday, the focus has been on protecting structures through aerial and ground attacks. Lacey Mayhew saw the work firsthand outside her home in the evacuation warning zone at Pfeiffer State Park.
It literally is in my backyard. It's just a few feet from our back door. So in the evening, we see them all coming in from the fires. They're just taking over the campground, sleeping everywhere on the ground. But it's been real reassuring seeing how many people have turned out to come help.
But what has already been a difficult fight for crews may get even more challenging Wednesday evening.
1 or 2 thunderstorms may try and develop in the region of the fire. If that were to happen again, erratic winds would be a big concern.
The U.S. Forest Service says these unpredictable winds can create complicated and dangerous conditions for firefighters, not to mention the chance of lightning strikes, which may ignite new fires. Crews are making necessary changes so no one is put in danger.
We make sure that we're paying attention. We make sure that we're tuned in. We make sure that we have the best possible intelligence and that we have our heads on a swivel. We make sure that we're ready to respond and that we're paying attention and that we know what's coming at us.
Now, on the flip side, these storms may also bring a little bit of rain to the region, which would certainly be a big help in this intensifying firefight. These will be the conditions crews will keep an eye on throughout the evening, and we'll be doing the same. In San Jose, Dustin Dorsey.
All right, so again, the fires are still raging. New fires are starting. On screen right now, we have a map, the U.S. wildfire smoke map. Track latest wildfires, red flag warnings across the U.S. This is from data.usatoday.com. And you could zoom in and see, some of them are larger than others, but these are all the active fires in the United States right now, which is mind-blowing. Let's scroll down a little bit and read here. So the smoke, Canada, wildfires in the Northwest Territories continued this morning, but no individual smoke plumes could be detected via satellite imagery due to significant cloud cover. However, an area of the remnant moderate to heavy smoke persisted over the northern Northwest Territories as well as Northeast Nunavut. Wildfires in southern British Columbia produced moderate to heavy density smoke that joined with smoke from the fires in the Pacific Northwest of the Canas. The combined plume stretched eastward at a narrow band of heavy smoke extended to near the U.S.-Canada border, reaching as far as the Great Lakes region. Moderate density smoke from the fires continue moving southeast into Canas before drifting eastward into the Atlantic Ocean. So now let's talk about the Canas. The wildfires in Washington and Oregon continued to produce moderate to heavy dense smoke. Smoke from these fires has drifted eastward and contributed to a widespread layer of moderate to heavy density smoke across much of the northern Canas. In addition to the numerous wildfires in the Pacific Northwest, fires located in Northern California, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, and New Mexico contributed to a widespread layer of moderate density smoke that covered most of the Canas, with the exception of the Southwest, and drifted eastward, ultimately reaching the Atlantic Ocean. We talked about that already. So now Mexico and the Gulf of America and the Pacific Ocean, light density smoke was observed over eastern Mexico, the Bay of Campeche, and the central Gulf of America, some of which drifted southward. And then we got the blowing dust from the Caribbean. So yes, there are wildfires all over the place. They are not slowing down. If anything, they're getting worse. And I keep hearing that it's because of El Nino, and I keep hearing it's because of the wind, and I keep hearing because of the drought. It's just a really strange and horrible combination of factors. And hell, some of these were started by arsonists. Some of them really were from lightning strikes. It's an absolutely crazy time. But yeah, I'm trying to keep y'all up to date as best I can on this. All right. Shifting gears here, let's talk about Mark Zuckerberg making his stunning announcement on the AI race. Now, depending on who you are, you may have a preconceived notion about old Zuck. I know I sure do. And now we're going to hear what his new innovation with AI is going to look like for all of us. Let's check this out.
Right now is Coming up on 545, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg is revealing his vision for the future of AI in a massive 6,500-word essay, along with this social media video. Watch.
All right, hey, so I think that the key to building a positive future for everyone is to make sure that everyone has access to personal superintelligence. So today, I am proud to share that we are open sourcing a new...
Just a quick question. Hey, is it really good for everybody to have access to superintelligence? I don't mean to sound pretentious here, but are we sure, Mark? Are we positive that that's a good thing, that we want every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there to have access to superintelligence and be, okay, sure. I'm the only one that sees a problem with that, I guess. All right, let's continue.
New class of on-device models that we are calling Muse Glimmer. We're also working to make sure that...
Okay, let's talk about that real quick also. The new AI model that Zuck has come out with is called Muse Glimmer. Muse Glimmer, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to sound like... That sounds gay as AIDS. I'm sorry. Like, Muse Glimmer? That's your... Okay, all right, sure. Zero style points. Zero style points for that. But all right, let's continue.
Everyone has a personal superintelligence agent that works 24/7 on your behalf to improve your health, your relationships, your career, your finances, and more.
So now we got to go to Muse Glimmer for our finance, our relationships, to just be a human. He wants us to go through the superintelligence of Muse Glimmer. I feel like so many skits could be made off of that sentence alone, of like Muse Glimmer is actually like a drag queen app that you now that's going to be your filter. Whatever decision you're thinking about making, you're going to run it through your drag queen app. I don't know. Let's continue.
Attorney and MRC Vice President of Free Speech, Dan Schneider, joins me now. Dan, thank you for joining the program. I want to start with, I guess, what you thought of Zuckerberg's comments. Keep in mind, he's pushing the open source product. He's in competition with OpenAI and Anthropic, which have closed source AIs. What did you think of his overall message yesterday?
Nate, I think the American public is missing how stunning this announcement is. It really is tantamount to the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution all wrapped up into one.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your boy is legitimately with a straight face saying Muse Glimmer is tantamount to the Declaration of Independence. I'm drawing a blank here. I'm having a real hard time finding the words to express how are you comparing an AI model to the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence all wrapped into one? Like what metric are you going off of here? But okay, let's let him flesh this out a bit, I suppose.
I think 20 years from now, people are going to look back at the Zuckerberg Declaration and thank him for helping to keep our liberty and our freedom.
Wow, that's quite a comment.
So somehow this AI model is going to help secure Americans' liberty and freedom by being an AI model that you use to, adjust your finances and deal with relationships and things like this. Somehow that is going to be the thing that secures our safety and freedom. Which also safety and freedom kind of go against each other just by their nature. But okay, let's continue, I suppose.
Of course, this is not only a U.S. race. We are in competition with our competitors, including China. And Trump's AI czar, David Sachs, said yesterday that the United States is 6 to 12 months ahead of China, and Zuckerberg talked about that international competition, writing in his essay, quote, which nations lead the development and deployment of advanced AI will contribute to a new geopolitical balance of power that will determine the prevalence of democratic values, prosperity, and security in the future.
Okay, pause. We're gonna read that direct quote from old Zuck one more time here, okay? Direct quote. Which nations lead the development and deployment of advanced AI will contribute to a new geopolitical balance of power that will determine the prevalence of democratic values, prosperity, and security in the future. I'm having a real tough time understanding how a more advanced AI model gives people freedom. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a hater of AI and the whole clankers and gearbacks and whatever, wireback, all the slurs for the robots, without even having the conversation of like the Terminator and all that. Strictly off of it being AI, how does this inherently make people prosper more, have more security for the future, and uphold our democratic values? Because once again, it's very easy to trip up AI. It gets things wrong pretty much constantly. That's what it's known for. How does this actually equate? How does this sentence make sense in the mind of Zuck? Maybe I'm crazy here, but I don't understand it here. It continues to say, to ensure this reaches a positive equilibrium, we must ensure the leading AI systems are ones that encode our values, grow our economy, and advance national security. It is an AI model. You're going to encode it with your values until it self-learns, which there is more and more of these AI models that are able to do that. And I'm not saying it's going to go rogue, but like it could grow our economy. AI is not growing anybody's economy except for content creators that are unoriginal and, uncreative. It's about all I got. And I'm not saying everybody that uses AI is uncreative. It's not like, how many of these YouTube videos are y'all seeing that it's all AI imaging? The voice is AI. The script is AI. Somebody just plugged in some shit into a model and put it out there, and somehow it's getting like 100,000 views. This dude who's unoriginal and just made an AI thing start to finish is making the ad revenues off of a video that's, you see what I'm saying? It's shit like that. It's lazy. Now, if you're using AI as a tool, then fine. Cool. Got no hatred for you. But yeah, anyway, I can go on a whole tangent about this, but all right, sure, it's going to somehow advance national security. Let's continue.
To ensure this reaches a positive equilibrium, we must ensure the leading AI systems are ones that encode our values, grow our economy, and advance national security. What is your read on where we are in the AI race against China?
Yeah, we are obviously still in the lead, but just like Donald Trump, Zuckerberg has correctly identified a system to keep us safe and to keep us in the lead. Thank God we don't have the old Joe Biden executive order on AI. Trump and Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, they are really opening up the world to keep us safe and secure.
And Dan, one more question for you before we let you.
Okay, again, I don't mean to be a dick here, but okay, I don't want China to be in the lead either. Like, at all. Y'all know my feelings towards old China, okay? But what I am saying is, by what metrics are you going to say that we are ahead of them in the AI race? I'm just being serious here. Is there some sort of like milestone that we have crossed that they haven't yet, that I'm unaware of? And don't say it's because we build more data centers, because that's like a server room. That doesn't inherently mean that your AI is better. It doesn't even necessarily mean that more people are using it. That's more of a technical thing as far as that goes. But as far as like the power behind the AI itself, no, the data centers aren't really. That's what I'm saying. Like, by what metric can we even genuinely say that we are winning the AI race? I guarantee China is able to make the same AI slop that we can. They're able to use it as a chat bot. They're able to use it as a information gaining tool. I don't know how, whatever. Anyway, that maybe is, I'm just not smart enough to understand how that goes, but I have no idea by what metrics he's saying. It's the same conversation, flip opposite, as people saying like, America's losing the war in Iran. By what metric are you saying that? There's zero metrics that you can actually apply to the Iran situation to say that America is losing at all. So, but somehow that's like the big talking point from all of these media people. I don't understand how you're even saying that. And I'm not saying that because I'm an American. I'm saying that because the numbers and the boots on the ground and the assets lost and what's been destroyed, one country is not doing so hot and the other one is still the only world superpower. Anyway, all right, continuing.
You go. Zuckerberg is also saying that Meta will invest in communities where they put up data centers, and we've seen some pushback, particularly here in New York, with a moratorium on new data centers going up. Do you think that will work?
Look, we have to have data centers if we're going to win this competition. But there are places that we can go. Alberta, Canada has both the cold weather and the water that's needed to keep these data centers powered. We just need to look for better options.
All right. Something to watch moving forward. Dan Schneider, thank you very much.
So again, it's something that concerns me greatly, actually, this whole AI situation, and because Zuck is on the case, it's got me a little worried. So now let's learn about this. Introducing Muse Glimmer, an open agentic model that runs on your device. That's not terrifying at all. Today, we are introducing Muse Glimmer, the next model from Meta Superintelligence Labs, and open sourcing the model waits under a permission Apache 2.0 license. Muse Glimmer is a 30 billion parameter. Wow. Okay. It's a 30 billion parameter model optimized for always on local agent workflow. It's small enough to run on Mac and PC with a single consumer GPU, enabling use cases that range from local agents and function calling to local coding and LLM as a judge evaluation. Muse Glimmer delivers strong performance on key agentic use cases and benchmarks compared with leading models in its size category. Foundation models have achieved remarkable capabilities across reasoning, code generation, and tool use, yet most deployments still depend on cloud infrastructure and network access. Running models locally enables you to use AI anywhere, anytime, with or without an internet connection. Wow. Okay, so they don't even need to have the internet to be able to have the AI tracking you. That's scary. This is increasingly viable. The open source community has shown that smaller models, when trained effectively, can approach frontier level performance on targeted tasks. Muse Glimmer is optimized for these local use cases. Oh, I'm sure. Keeping up with our long tradition of sharing fundamental AI research, we're releasing Muse Glimmer open weights today on Hugging Face, along with developer document to help you start building and running your own agents. So how do they train it? An agent that manages your schedule, drafts your messages, organizes your files, and learns how you work needs deep access to personal context. It also needs several capabilities working in concert: long horizon execution, precise tool calling, multi-model understanding, long context memory, and an instruction following. We designed Muse Glimmer to balance capability against the memory and compute constraints of local hardware. This required a compact architecture of novel distillation recipe that transfer reasoning from a much larger teacher model and interference optimizations, including quantization, to meet latency expectations. We achieve this in the following phases: pre-training, mid-training, and post-training. Basically, they train Muse Glimmer on Muse Spark outputs using logit distillation. Then they train the model on longer context, more agent-heavy data with richer reasoning traces. And then the post-training, they combined supervised fine-tuning with a mix of on-policy distillation and reinforcement learning across general reasoning, coding, and agentic domains. Okay, I'm not saying that they didn't make this thing great. What I'm saying is the fact that they're wanting to use it to the level and with the intent that they have. It's a bit terrifying for me personally. I don't know how y'all feel on it, but I have such an overabundance of distrust towards AI and towards Zuckerberg in general that this is, I don't see Muse Glimmer as being a very positive thing, but I know it's going to have so many commercials about it soon, and everybody's going to be going on about how it's like the latest and greatest thing, and anyway, it's terrifying out here, y'all. Moving forward, now this is a ex-Southern Poverty Law Center CFO who channeled $1.2 million to extremist groups. Yes, this press conference just happened a few hours ago as of time of recording. Let's listen to Todd Blanche talk about the current situation, then we're going to read about it too. It's pretty phenomenal.
We've learned that the Justice Department has unsealed a case against the former chief financial officer of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Can you please speak a little bit about what you've learned as part of that investigation and if we should expect more charges?
So yes, today my understanding is today there was an arrest made and there is a new indictment that includes the former CFO of SPLC. I don't have any comments about whether we've said from the beginning, everybody, not just me, but anybody who's talked about this case, like virtually every criminal case, the fact that an indictment is returned doesn't end the investigation. It's just part of the investigation in most cases, which is certainly true in this case. I think as alleged in the indictment, this individual participated in the scheme as alleged. I believe she was part of the effort to open bank accounts in completely fictitious companies' names and make payments to individuals for reasons that were not that were not accurate as described. But I don't have. I think the indictment was unsealed this morning. I believe it was unsealed this morning. I think the arrest was this morning. I don't.
So let's actually read about this, right? So it's been big news that the Southern Poverty Law Center was actually making money off of starting riots, and they were funding extremist groups because the best way to recruit new people and get more funding is to point the finger at some egregious thing that just took place. For example, the Proud Boys meeting in, what was it, Charlotte, South Carolina, something where all the white dudes are out there with tiki torches saying, they will not replace us, and all that foolishness. Did y'all happen to notice all of them had a certain look about them? They all dressed in a very similar fashion. They all had a very similar haircut. They all had a very similar build. They were all of a certain age bracket. It's almost as if they were plants. They were paid to be there by somebody. And that's the other thing, too. Whenever you're seeing all of these protests and these riots, like and we could talk about, a few years back, there was just pallets of bricks strategically placed all over the city where the looting was supposed to go down. Well, where did these pallets of bricks come from, right? This takes logistics. That takes money to purchase even the signs. And that's also been a thing that's gone on. Like, everybody thinks it's George Soros that's funding things, and he is to a very large degree. But even signs that you'll see protesters carry, those cost money. And I'm not saying each sign is $12. No. But even still, even if you order 1,000 signs, that's hundreds of dollars that somebody is paying. So who is collecting this money? Where is it coming from? If you go up the chain far enough, well, more than a few of these were actually done by the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is I'm not going to say a leftist propaganda machine. That's not a fair statement to make. But let's just say that they are big into the liberal-leaning zeitgeist. But what they have been caught doing, for those that have not been keeping up with it, they have been funding, for instance, like the KKK. And if they are funding the Klan under the table, then the Klan goes out and does some crazy, egregious act, even if it's just a protest on the Capitol steps with their white hoods or whatever, right? The Southern Poverty Law Center is able to take that and blast it all over their media platforms and say, look at this racial bigotry, blah, blah, blah. And all these people who are on the outside of the periphery of it and be like, oh my God, they're still operating. Oh my God, please, I will sign this check and send you. We got to stop this. Even though it was the money itself from the Southern Poverty Law Center that put the Klan rally on in the first place. So they have been running this gambit for a good long while, and they just got caught. And now with that, we have this case that was just opened this morning as of time of recording. So the DOJ charges former Southern Poverty Law Center CFO with fraud. Let's talk about it. Former chief financial officer was arrested Wednesday and charged with fraud in a superseding indictment that accuses her of overseeing fraudulent donor payments to informants, include inside hate groups, including one with whom she had allegedly been in a romantic relationship and shared a bank account, according to newly unsealed court documents. So I'm not saying that she was banging a Klansman. I'm saying that she allegedly was banging a Klansman, and apparently the romantic relationship was so impactful, and there was a level of trust established to the point of them both having a joint bank account. That's not crazy or suspicious whatsoever. Heidi Bierich was arrested in California Wednesday morning and charged with several counts, including conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. ABC was not immediately able to reach her attorney. Obviously not. Prosecutors say that she, who previously led the SPLC's hate group tracking section, she formerly led the hate groups tracking section of the Southern Poverty Law Center, that's great, was one among several individuals who oversaw payments to individuals who infiltrated white supremacist groups and acted as informants for the SPLC. In April, SPLC was charged as an organization with bank fraud and money laundering offenses related to its paying for informants to infiltrate hate groups. Bierich is the first named individual to face criminal charges in connection with the case. The SPLC has rejected allegations it's misled donors and has said payments to informants were in line with the organization's broader mission of rooting out and exposing the internal workings of white supremacists and other hate groups. So they're not denying that they definitely spent money on hate groups. What they're saying is that it was totally within what they said they were going to do, even if they didn't say it. It was like in the fine print within the fine print, bro. That's all. And look at this train wreck. That's the one that was banging a white supremacist. It blows my mind, dude. Anyway, the superseding indictment alleges one of the individuals that Bierich approved payments for was the Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, and that Bierich had also had a romantic relationship with a separate person who the SPLC had paid over $1 million since 2007. Bierich allegedly shared a bank account with that person, and between 2015 and 2021, approximately $140,000 in SPLC donors' money flowed into it, the indictment said. Wow. Yeah, no, I just was throwing out the Klan as a alleged, like a supposed. No, it's right there. It's right there. You know, if you got hate in your heart, just let it out. The SPLC previously moved to have the case dismissed on the grounds that the organization was a victim of vindictive prosecution by the Trump administration, but that claim was rejected last week by federal judges. Yeah, absolutely it was. You're not going to play it this way. You know, this is just bigotry. No, you're funding the Klan. I'm sorry, whatever reason or justification you're about to throw back is completely null and void. Wow. In an unrelated news conference on Wednesday, Attorney General Todd Blanche said the SPLC indictment shows exactly what we said would happen in a case like this, which is that our investigators and the U.S. attorneys and the agents working the case will keep on working it even after the initial indictment. Yeah, that's phenomenal. And this makes me happy that the Southern Poverty Law Center is getting their comeuppance as far as that's concerned. All right, moving forward here. Let's talk about Mamdani. Let's talk about the socialist that is driving New York City into the ground and then continuing to dig, bro. He's looking for China right now, I think. So let's talk about it here. Apparently, Mamdani's wife was going to the Middle East on a trip. And Mamdani says that the NYPD was supposed to be her personal security detail while she was overseas. And the NYPD is saying, no, that's not. First of all, it's not the case. Secondly, you're the mayor of a city. Why are you making international relations trips? And third, our jurisdiction is New York. Why would we go to another country? We're not even national/federal agents, nor are we internationally. Like, what are we talking about here, dude? So let's learn about this one together, y'all. This one's actually pretty funny.
Meantime, the NYPD says it will not send security with Mayor Mamdani's wife when she visits Syria and Lebanon next month. And the mayor now blaming his staff for the mixed messaging. Nate Foy joins us now with the details. Nate, what happened?
Hey, Griff. So, yeah, the Big Apple's first lady is headed to the Middle East without a taxpayer-funded police escort. And it comes after sort of a high-profile back and forth between the mayor and the NYPD. A police spokesperson says, quote, the NYPD does not send officers to countries with level 4 travel advisories for discretionary reasons not linked to investigative work. Earlier in the week, a source told the New York Post that the First Lady had requested the escort, and a spokesperson for the mayor's office had confirmed that police would in fact join her. They even issued this statement saying the detail would join her on the trip per the NYPD's strong recommendation. That might be because both countries on her itinerary happen to be on the State Department's do not travel list because of security concerns. However, yesterday, after the NYPD denied those plans, Mayor Mamdani blamed the back and forth on a miscommunication.
There was a miscommunication. She hasn't yet taken this trip, and when she takes this trip, it will be without any NYPD details.
So that clarifies that point.
Yes.
One source familiar with the situation told the New York Post that Mamdani's office reportedly never checked with the commissioner before announcing the security detail on Monday. Syria and Lebanon were given the level 4 do not travel advisory for a number of reasons, including armed conflict and terrorism with Hezbollah operating in the country and kidnapping concerns as well. We'll send it back to you guys.
I don't know. I feel like she would probably be safe there because, you know, of her religion and shit. But whatever. The fact that they even thought that the New York Police Department was going to escort them, like you would, there's security people you can bring. Hell, even if you were to call the U.S. Marshals or something, maybe in that regard. But the city police? That's a weird one for Mamdani to try to flex in this manner, but, you know, it is what it is. This is from TMZ, and you know what? Say what you want. People think TMZs are tabloids. I've said it before, dude. Their level of reporting and their level of getting the actual scoop is crazy work. So, I mean, say what you want. They're usually pretty quick with it. So anyway, NYPD says hell no to wife's overseas security detail. Let's learn more. NYC, New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani is not on the same page with the NYPD when it comes to security details for his wife during her upcoming Middle East trip because it's not happening. I love that. He's saying there was a simple miscommunication. Yeah, sure. Mamdani's wife, Rama Douaji, wanted cops to escort her around Syria and Lebanon next month, but an NYPD spokesperson said the NYPD does not send officers to countries with level 4 travel advisories. We talked about that. That sounds like news to Mamdani because on Monday, his office told them that upon the strong recommendation of the New York Police Department, the First Lady's security detail will be joining her, you see what I'm saying here? Her trip begins September 20th, and both countries are on the State Department's do not travel list. Despite Mamdani's earlier prediction, it looks like his wife will have to splurge for her own private security because the NYPD is refusing to pay the bill. Yeah, probably. I'm just looking at it. He's ruining so many things for the cops, especially in that department, but okay. One source told the Post that Rama, who is a private person, specifically asked for the NYPD security after returning from a different overseas trip with no security. We reached out to Mamdani's office for comment. So far, no word back. Yeah, as expected. All right, moving forward here. I also want to talk about this. This is with the Charlie Kirk assassination conversation, right? So Tyler Robinson. Yeah, I was about to say old Thomas Matthew Crooks. Excuse me. Tyler Robinson, he's being basically, they're sentencing him. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do with him. And now they're saying that they want the death penalty to be removed from it because there was some sort of a weird wording in one of the charges. It's ridiculous. Let's learn about this one, y'all.
The case against Tyler Robinson, who is the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk, is moving a little bit closer to a key decision over whether or not he could face the death penalty. Following a preliminary hearing, both sides have now filed their arguments over whether the case should move forward, and if so, should the death penalty stay on the table. Today, the defense filed their brief, which challenges that critical part of the prosecution's case. Tyler Robinson's attorneys in that filing are arguing that prosecutors have not shown that others were at risk of death in the alleged shooting. And because of that, they argue that the death penalty should be taken off the table. I spoke with Nathan Evershed, who is a defense attorney not associated with the case, about the defense's argument.
It is a big part of the case. Some could claim it's really the only issue in the case. It's a significant issue for the defense because if the judge were to agree with them, or down the road the jury were to agree with them, there is no death penalty.
And we've talked about this in the past. When you're talking about a capital case, I keep hearing time and time again that the defense's number one priority is get death penalty off the table. It seems like that's what's trying to be established here.
Yes, that's 100% right. And sometimes defenses are not that strong to remove aggravating elements. In this case, frankly, they have a good argument, and anyone that's been talking about this case or knows anything about the law has been saying this for nearly a year. This is the issue in the case, and so the defense nicely teed it up. It doesn't mean that the prosecution at this phase in the case doesn't have their responses. They do. They have a lot of things that they're arguing as to zone of danger and line of sight and those things. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the judge rules. The judge could just say that this is just going to be a jury issue. You'll argue it before the jury. Or the judge could say, you know what? Yeah, based off of what I see and how I interpret the law, that the aggravating factor could be stricken, and now this is a murder case. It's still an overwhelming murder case, but murder is different than aggravated murder.
Did anything in this most recent filing by the defense surprise you at all, or is this what you would come to expect from a filing by the defense in a case like this?
It's exactly what I came to expect. I mean, they have only so many arguments, and they honed in on this. And you watch, should this be bound over and this goes to trial, this will be the issue by the defense in the jury trial. This will be their drum that they are going to beat that again and again. Again, in their motion, it's interesting to see what they didn't argue, because why argue it? They didn't argue against identity. They didn't argue against intent. They didn't argue about, how these things could be tied back to Mr. Robinson. They had their argument, and they really laid out a good case.
Because really, at the end of the day, they kind of just need to focus on sort of one aspect that they feel may be the strongest in their favor. They don't need
Correct.
to really argue absolutely everything. They need to argue sort of stay narrow focused.
Correct. Because if they're able to get the aggravating factor off, that is a significant win for them.
All right, so the judge is expected to make his ruling on whether or not this case will move forward on September 1st. And this is just a small portion of that interview with Nathan Evershed.
Okay, so I don't know what to make of it as far as the case is concerned. Of course, I think that, the man that killed Charlie Kirk absolutely needs to see justice. But and again, this isn't me trying to get conspiratorial here, although it is what it is. What are the chances that he actually gets to walk because of some sort of a thing? Oh, it was a mistrial, or, there was a fumbling of the evidence, or they get some sort of a crazy fuck up, and because of double jeopardy, they can't. You see what I'm saying? I'm not trying to go Candace Owens here, because y'all know how I feel about that line of thinking as well. But dude, obviously it's an open and shut case, and he should go away. Now, I don't believe that he'll get the death penalty for this, honestly, right? I mean, it's possible, but usually it's just it was one murder. You're right. It wasn't like he opened fire on the entire crowd. It wasn't like there was a mass shooting. It was one person, and I don't know what the legal precedence is in Utah for first degree murder, but that's not even it. He's not even going for that. It was premeditated, obviously, but murder versus aggravated, all these things, all these different distinctions within the law and how it's written and what they're trying to, get him jail time for, that's all going to play such a factor moving forward. But anyway, I don't know what to make of it, but I did figure that while that is kind of like what's going on in the news in the world today, we might as well stop and have a little chat about that one as well. But, I think we've pretty much covered the majority of what I wanted to talk about tonight. I will check the comments real quick to see what is going on here, because before I get out of the chat tonight, I wanted to see what else is going on. Let's see. Mine is done. Hold on, Midnight Kong, you sent me something from Instagram. What is this one? A data center owner claims his town's water supply is being threatened by Google's data center. That picture looks AI as hell, and I don't know why it's okay. Basically saying that the water supply is running out because of the data center. Fuck yeah. That's something I'm hearing a lot of talk about it here, Midnight Kong.
Yeah, he kind of goes into a thing talking about how he owns and runs a data center and saying that they don't need all the water that they're trying to take, and it could be like a closed system. It's a kind of quick listen, but that, yeah, way it's written there is pretty bad.
Dude, I'm telling you, I am happy that so many people are saying no to the data centers around them. It's like, it's one of these things. It's worth me getting high off of hopium that maybe common sense and maybe people think of from themselves as like, it's coming back. You know what I mean? I know I'm probably just kidding myself here, but damn it, it's a really fun delusion that I'm riding right now. So we'll see. We shall see. But yeah, I don't understand how and why they're able to, like, with a straight face tell us that we're winning the AI race. And if we are, then great. I'm happy to hear that. But what metric are you using to quantify that statement? Or is it kind of like the space race, the space race with Russia, or the USSR, I should say, where they had beat us at every conceivable mile marker until, out of nowhere, Hail Mary shot, boom, we landed on the moon, bitch. And it's like, but what? We were the first ones to put a satellite in space, a dog in space, a man in space, a woman in space. And America's like, yeah, but we got to the moon first. So, is the AI race similar to where it's like, oh, yeah, well, our AI model can do bop, bop, bop. Meanwhile, America's like, yeah, well, we got more data centers than you. So, boom, we win. I don't know. I don't know what they're using as their metric. But with everything shaking out the way that it has, I bet that is a metric that they're using, because China only has like, I think 500 data centers, give or take, and America's opening up thousands right now. I don't know. I don't know. But you know what? We're going to keep talking about that one in the weeks to come, especially now that we got Muse Glimmer to look forward to. Look forward to the meta data centers that are going to be going up everywhere. But anyway, looks like we're going to get to wrap this episode up early, everybody. And thank y'all so much for joining me on this episode. If you are listening to this once again and you want to be a part of the conversation every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central, come check out patreon.com/Cajun Night. There's only one tier for entry. And we like to get together and talk about the things that are going on in the world around us at least once a week. And I thoroughly enjoy my Wednesday nights with the retinue. I know that all of them do as well. Come join us, y'all. Also, leave comments. If you disagree with one of the takes that I made about something that was brought up this evening, or something that Tony said, or whatever, hit us in the comments and let us know what you think about it, y'all. It helps boost the algorithm. It boosts promotion from this show into other people's zeitgeist and into other people's realms. We appreciate you if you would do so. As always, y'all, I am the Cajun Knight. Thank y'all so much for joining me, and God bless.